बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। पाकिस्तान टुडे के साथ मैं हूं मंसूर आजम काजी। नाज़रीन, अफ़गान तालिबान डायलॉग को कामयाब बनाने में पाकिस्तान का एक कलीदी किरदार है। अफ़गानिस्तान के तमाम स्टेक होल्डर्स, चाहे वो अब्दुल्ला हों, चाहे अफ़गान तालिबान हों या फिर अफ़गानिस्तान की अवाम, सब पुरअमन अफ़गानिस्तान के ख्वाह हैं। इस तमाम तर सूरत हाल में एक बुनियादी तब्दीली ये है कि वो पाकिस्तान जिसको पहले अमन दुश्मन गर्दाना जाता था, अब ज़मीनी हक़ाइक़ और पाकिस्तान की अमन को कोशिशों को मद्देनज़र रखते हुए अमन का ख्वाहा माना जाता है। डॉक्टर अब्दुल्ला का पाकिस्तान का कामयाब दौरा इस नज़रिए की अक्कासी करता है कि रियासत पाकिस्तान हर स्टेक होल्डर से बात करने को तैयार है, लेकिन कुछ ऐसे अनासर जैसे अमरुल्लाह सालेह जो NDS के साबिक चीफ रहे हैं और इस वक्त फर्स्ट नायब सदर अफ़गानिस्तान हैं, उनकी भरपूर कोशिश है कि इस अफ़गान अमन को सबोताज किया जा सके। ये खुली हकीकत है कि हिंदुस्तान आज भी अफ़गानिस्तान में मलेशिया को सपोर्ट कर रहा है ताकि अफ़गान अमन और इस्तेहकाम को तबाह किया जा सके। अब्दुल्ला के दौरा पाकिस्तान के दौरान रशीद दोस्तम का हिंदुस्तान का दौरा हुआ, जहां उनकी मुलाकात हिंदुस्तान के वज़ीर ख़ारजा से हुई, जो इस मौक़िफ़ की तक़लीद करता है कि दुनिया को तस्वीर का असल अक्स भी दिखाता है। अब्दुल्ला के दौरे पाकिस्तान के बाद दौरा हिंदुस्तान हुआ, जिसको इस तरह पजीराई हासिल नहीं हुई जैसे दौरा पाकिस्तान को हुई। पाकिस्तान कितना अहम है और कितना कलीदी किरदार अदा कर सकता है अफ़गान अमन मुआहदे पर, इस पर बात करने के लिए मुझे आज ज्वाइन किया है आमिना खान ने, डायरेक्टर हैं CMEA एंड अफ़गानिस्तान ISSI की जी, और ताबिश फ़रूख, आप सीनियर पॉलिसी एनालिस्ट हैं अफ़गानिस्तान के और हमें डायरेक्टली US से ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं। नाज़रीन, इन दोनों से बात करते हैं एक छोटी सी ब्रेक के बाद, मेरे साथ रहिएगा। Welcome back after the break. Nazreen, I have Tabish Forugh with me and Amina Khan. Thank you very much for joining Pakistan today. Tabish, let me start with you. What is the environment in Afghanistan if we talk about starting from the talks in Doha? What is the expectation? What are the concerns? And what are the goals we are having in mind once we talk about the Doha talks?
Assalamu alaikum to all of you, and particularly to you and Madam Amina Khan. Glad to be with you. The environment and the perception and the general perception of the Afghans about the peace process is that things are finally rolling after 42 years of war, right? So the consensus for reaching an agreement and the hope and the optimism of the Afghan people is there. But unfortunately, as we move forward, which is quite natural with any complex and controversial negotiations, there are roadblocks that needs to be ironed out, and there are talks to be detailed and elaborated among stakeholders. So the news from Doha, at least in the recent weeks after the initial start, is not unfortunately so promising, but still sides and parties to the conflict and to the negotiations are trying to solve and make sure that the mechanism for solving the disputes during the talks is laid out, and based on that, progress is made.
Okay. Amina, let me come to you. As Tabish is saying, इतना अच्छा एटमॉस्फेयर नहीं है, इतना अच्छा अभी तक रिस्पॉन्स नहीं आया. What exactly Pakistan can play in this whole scenario, although we know what Pakistan has been doing, but going forward आप क्या समझती हैं पाकिस्तान रोल कैसा अदा कर सकता है स्पेसिफिकली इस सिचुएशन के अंदर, द दोहा टॉक्स?
देखिए जी, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आई एग्री विद फारूक व्हाट ही सेड. पहले ये है कि देखिए ये टॉक्स जो हो रहे हैं ना, ये हिस्टोरिक है, ये अनप्रेसिडेंटेड है, और ये हो रहे हैं आफ्टर मोर देन 19 years ऑफ ब्लडशेड एंड वायलेंस. तो ये जो हमारी एक सोच है कि ऑल ऑफ अ सडन यू आर गोइंग टू अचीव पीस इन अफगानिस्तान, ये बहुत आई थिंक अनरियलिस्टिक है. इधर हमने रियलिस्टिक होना है, और अभी वी शुड बी कॉशियसली ऑप्टिमिस्टिक. ठीक है जी, द फैक्ट कि फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम ऑफिशियली दोनों अफगान तालिबान और काबुल एक दूसरे के सामने बैठ रहे हैं और बातें कर रहे हैं, दिस इन इटसेल्फ इज अ ब्रेक थ्रू. एंड इसी पे वी have to show a lot of patience. देखिए जी, peace deals और peace जो होती है ना, it does not come in a day and it doesn't come through a magic wand. It takes a lot of patience, compromises, और ये process बहुत fragile है. और अभी भी अगर आप देख रहे हैं, अभी भी hurdles create हो रही है बहुत छोटे छोटे बातें के ऊपर. तो मसला ये है कि there's a lot of mistrust unfortunately अभी ये जो दोनों parties है. तो इनको हमने अभी आहिस्ता आहिस्ता the fact कि वो engage कर रहे हैं, ये भी सबसे बड़ी बात है. नंबर 2, जिधर पाकिस्तान की बात है, देखिए पहले दिन से despite the fact that Pakistan has been blamed and over again, ठीक है जी, not only by the Americans but you know obviously Kabul भी बार ये कह चुका है कि we're a spoiler and what not, but Pakistan day one से कह रहा था कि the only way to achieve peace in Afghanistan is through a negotiated settlement. Absolutely. Meaning through dialogue. And I'm glad it is unfortunate that again it has taken more than 19 years of bloodshed and violence and countless innocent Afghan lives for the Americans to realize this. So Pakistan again is sticking to its principal stance, which is to support the peace process. देखिए जी, all we can do is push both sides to engage, and we have to ensure कि ये जो अभी एक process शुरू हो चुकी है, ये collapse ना हो. And अगर collapse हो भी जाए, again दोबारा इनको engage करें. लेकिन इधर मैं एक ज़रूरी बात करूँगी कि देखिए जी, Pakistan's role has to be limited to supporting and facilitating the peace process. आगे पीस अचीव हो या ना हो, हमारी ये सिंसियर दुआ है कि अचीव हो, लेकिन ये फिर एक अफगान प्रेरोगेटिव है. और अनफॉर्चुनेटली जितना भी मुश्किल है, ये अफगान्स ने खुद बैठ के ही इस मसले को हल करना है.
ठीक हो गया, आमना बिल्कुल ठीक है. ताबिश, let me come back. What Amina is saying, I agree on that. There is a mistrust. We agree. It's been 19 years. The bloodshed is there. We agree on that. Now, Abdullah visit to Pakistan. It went very well. It went very well all over the Pakistan. It was acknowledged. He met the Prime Minister. He met all the concerned quarters. He met media. The narrative which Afghanistan has, that has been through. Now the most important thing is the regional actors. May it be Pakistan, may it be India, may it be firstly we were the peace spoilers. Now the world has realized that Pakistan is not the peace spoiler, it's the peacemaker. So going forward, what roles do you see of these regional factors and the countries once we talk about the Afghan peace process?
Mansoor, you know that we are living in a very fragile region, as Amina mentioned, right? The threats to terrorism is not just threatening Afghanistan, but the entire region. So to make peace in any of these countries, we need two level of equilibrium of stability. The internal equilibrium of stability in Afghanistan depends on how Afghan parties and the sides of the conflict make sure that we have an accommodative system for all the parties and a roadmap that achieves peace and sustains peace in the long run.
Correct.
The regional equilibrium of peace, definitely, as mentioned in your talks and in Amina's talks, is to make sure that everybody with interest and, of course, with the sabotage power in the region or cooperating in a peace platform that is moving the region beyond what is now we are stuck in. So, not just the Pakistan state role, but the civil society, the people, similar to the Indian government and people, and of course to the Iranians, to the Russians, to the Chinese, and more importantly to the Americans, which are main player in Afghan politics. All these players needs to understand that there is a new chapter that needs to be open, and there are new opportunities that needs to be taken advantage of. I mean, these two levels of equilibrium needs diplomacy, deliberation, and devotion of time and energy, not just from the Afghan side, but from the region. If there is not an understanding that peaceful Afghanistan is in the interest of Pakistan, is in the interest of India and all the region, I am afraid we will stuck with what is challenging us today. So any peace in Afghanistan, really, the sustainability of any peace depends how we gain and garner the support of the regional countries, particularly Pakistan. I know that the visit of His Excellency Dr. Abdullah was widely welcomed by the state, by the nation, by the institutions in Pakistan. And there is this realization that any support outside of the formal government to government and state to state is not helping us to move forward. So if there is a new realization for peace coming from Pakistan, this should be a welcoming message. I read Prime Minister Imran Khan's piece in Washington Post. The piece is giving us a sense that, look, we made mistakes, you made mistakes, we have a difficult past, and we have to go from that difficult past and make sure that the future is not the way we dealt with in the last 40 years. So if this realization is manifested in the peace talks in Doha and in the regional platforms, I think this is a major step forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amina, very, very correctly said, as said by Tabish. We are starting a new chapter, and the world needs to understand it. A peaceful Afghanistan, let's not, firstly, we were talking about the regional countries, the regional actors. Now, I personally believe that a peaceful Afghanistan is peace in the world. That's the message which actually be going out. At this moment in time, what role, once again, Pakistan has to play, because Taliban and the Afghan government and the Pakistan, it feels like that Pakistan is a main player or a moderator who can make Taliban sit on table with the Afghan government. What's your take on that?
Ajay, first of all, I agree with exactly what Forugh said. Dekhiye ji, the issue here is that, you see, peace is essential for the region and for Pakistan. And I'm sure this sounds like a cliche because we've said it time and again, but we mean it. Okay, peace and stability in Afghanistan is particularly important for Afghanistan's immediate neighbors. And by immediate, मैं ये कह रही हूँ, those that share a direct border with Afghanistan, which is primarily Pakistan and Iran. Because I don't want to dwell into the history of the past, but we've seen that whatever happens in Afghanistan has a direct implication, particularly on Pakistan and Iran. And we've seen whether it's been instability, refugees, or whatnot. We need to have a stable border. We need to have a stable Afghanistan, not only for peace and security, but also for the economic dividends that could be achieved once there's stability in Afghanistan. TKG, and time and again, Pakistan has been saying this, and so has President Ghani, that, you know, instead of viewing Afghanistan as once was, a landlocked country, it is a regional roundabout. And through dividends and through projects like CPEC, what can't be achieved in this region? However, again, this is easier said than done, and unless and until there is no peace, there can be no forward movement on this matter. Here, I just want to raise an issue. Dekhiye ji, for the first time, I think, in the history of this region, countries that were always at odds with each other, particularly Afghanistan mein, beshak wo Iran ho, wo Russia ho, Pakistan, who had conflicting interests because we supported different groups. Ye sare mulk, including the Central Asians and China, again, who are direct neighbors of Afghanistan, are on the same page. वो चाहते हैं कि there should be a negotiated settlement. वो recognize करते हैं कि the Taliban have a pivotal role to play and they are major stakeholders. तीसरी ये बात है कि they also recognize the growing presence and threat of the Islamic State of Khorasan province, या ISKP जो आप उसको कहते हैं. ठीक है जी. So all these, so regional countries are on board. Okay. Here I have to say, reluctantly, India has never been on board for obvious reasons, and obviously because of their support to the Northern Alliance and their opposition to the Taliban. Lekin, I personally feel that because regional realities have changed so much, and as Tabish mentioned, there are now so many new actors, regional realities badal chuke hain, कि even now India realizes that, at the end of the day, unne bhi jo bhi Afghans ko manzoor ho, which may include, and of course will include, the Afghan Taliban, it is important ke unko accept kare. Now coming back again to Pakistan's role, dekhiye, this is very important, and ye baar main hamesha I always stress this point कि देखिए पाकिस्तान and Afghanistan का जो relationship है ना, it has been dictated by two things: security and the peace process. ठीक है जी, and by security I mean the Taliban. अगर positive developments हो जाते हैं तो you always have positive statements coming from Afghanistan.
Exactly.
लेकिन अगर कुछ बुरा हो जाता है, so then all the blame is on Pakistan, कि there's the spoilers and whatnot. So इसमें then there's, it's vague and there's ambiguity coming from the Afghan government. That is why I feel कि the relationship yes, Pakistan has an important role to play in the peace process. The peace process is an important facet of the relationship. Lekin, the relationship should not be based on the outcome of the peace process, because that is one of the reasons why we have been able to focus on other aspects.
बिल्कुल ठीक है. Tabish, I really want to take this point. A stable Afghanistan, the issues of being security and the peace process, that's the basic. I'm just referring to the 8th October, Donald Trump, US President, tweeted that US should withdraw its troops by Christmas. What do you think, Tabish? Will it put any constraint on negotiating teams who are doing this so that the deal can be finalized by then? Or do you think or do you feel that no, it's not going to be Christmas, it may prolong a little bit and then things can work out? What's your take on that?
I think maybe one should cautiously count that as a part of the unconventionality of President Trump, right? There is other institutions in the United States who are dealing with the entire peace diplomacy toward Afghanistan. I'm afraid this will give the leverage to the Taliban on the negotiating table, but at the same time, there is really no other evidence supporting what President Trump is pushing for, because the top generals in the Defense Ministry and the State Department are advising to remain with the condition of the agreement that was signed in Doha. But after all, the way Donald Trump is dealing with the peace process is definitely making impact on the outcome of the negotiations that is going on in Doha. I hope we see not just a rushed withdrawal of the United States forces from Afghanistan, but rather a reasonable, negotiated way of making sure that the vacuum is not filled with other terrorist groups in Afghanistan. So my assumption is that the withdrawal is coming. The residual decline of American presence, not just in Afghanistan, but in Asia, that is an inevitable part of the strategic calculation that is happening all over the region. So I believe a soft landing of the US power, at least in Asia, is something that we can see on the horizon. Withdrawing from Afghanistan could be part of that. But I hope as people in that region that we see the realities. We shouldn't, we expect that an abrupt sort of irresponsible withdrawal is not leading us back to what happened after the Soviet withdrawal in the 90s.
Okay, very right. Amina, last 2 points. I just want to have that clarity because a lot of people were asking about it. Will Pakistan work extensively on CPEC once this peace process is done, and will Pakistan include Afghanistan in all this, because that's a very huge and big game which is happening in Pakistan. And secondly, what will be the future of Afghan refugees in particular who are in Pakistan for the last more than 3 decades?
First of all, let me just follow up from what Forugh said. Again, there is a debate on whether the Americans are going to leave or not. And yes, he has given statements. The pressure should be by all the regional countries and, of course, Pakistan and the Afghans themselves, that it should not be a hasty withdrawal. This is essential. TKG, because if it happens in a haphazard manner, all the little that you've achieved during the past 19 years is just going to be an exercise in futility. Agar hona bhi chahiye, it should be done gradually and through a proper manner. Dusra ye hai ki there is still ambiguity, I feel, on their part, because if you remember in the Moscow talks, Abbas Tanikzai has categorically stated not once but several times that while they have always stressed on the withdrawal of foreign forces from Afghanistan, they would be open to some sort of US presence when it comes to reconstruction and development. So this is a caveat. This leaves an opening for some sort of presence of US troops. TKG, and I think that would be good, because unless and until you don't have stability in Afghanistan, the Americans should not leave. They're a major stakeholder. They have a responsibility and an obligation to fulfill to the region as well as to the Afghans. Number one. Number two, regarding CPEC, I think it would be great to extend CPEC to Afghanistan, but it is not solely Pakistan's decision, because it is a project that China comes under the BRI, which is China. Right. Now, China has indirectly stated जो हमारी एक trilateral है which is the Pakistan, Afghanistan and China trilateral initiative, उसमें there has been several times mentioned पहले भी that they would like to extend CPEC to Afghanistan. Pakistanis have indirectly hinted to. Unfortunately, the Afghans have been a little silent on this, and if you remember, I believe this was in 2017 if I'm not mistaken,
right.
President Ashraf Ghani was giving a speech in Delhi where he categorically said that we will only enter or be a part of CPEC if Pakistan gives India the Wagah route border. I think this is a mistake, I think, on Afghanistan's part, because they should not. The whole point is we need to detach the Pak-India rivalry away from the Afghan relationship, and we need to focus more on bilateral issues. Eventually, agar peace is region mein aa jata hai, jo bahut mushkil hai, but we can only hope, then it could be extended further, and India could also be included, because dekhiye ji, the only factor that can reduce violence, hostility and tense relations is economic interdependence. This is so important. Jab economics aa jata hai, that will automatically lead to countries to deny them any space to operate against each other in a detrimental way. So I think it would be very good if CPEC is extended to Afghanistan. But again, the Chinese are cautious. They will only do that and continue or either initiate it once there's some sort of stability. Or iske hawale se, sorry, let me just add one more point.
Sure.
The Taliban have been very clear, whether it's been TAPI or CPEC, they have on 2 occasions categorically stated that they are open to the development of Afghanistan, including projects like that.
Very right. Tabish, last question from you. Women, we all talk about the women rights, and that is the major concern, if I say, in the peace process, what is happening. What can be the role of international community once we talk about that? Because the protection of the women rights, that's very important. Very shortly, please respond on that.
I believe, and very fortunately, Afghan women are on the front line, on the fronts of the talks demanding the recognition of their rights from the international community. I think that is very essential in making any liberal peace, any sustainable peace in Afghanistan. Without the rights of the women, without the recognition of the basic human rights of the Afghan people, it's really tough to see Taliban merging within the mainstream Afghan society. I believe that if there is any change of mentality within the Taliban ranks and files, they should understand that they are dealing with a transformed country after 19 years. Yes, there are political consideration that they might have, their ideological consideration towards Afghanistan, but the reality is that you cannot deal with Afghanistan while cutting half of that population short and dealing with Afghanistan in isolation. When it comes to, for example, energy diplomacy, the TOPI, the CPAC, whatever diplomatic initiatives that connects, for example, the South Asia region with the Central Asian rich countries, all of these depends how Taliban are making compromises in the peace talks. Let me be very clear, no peace is achieved without compromise.
Absolutely.
This should be the main and foundational understanding of any party to the peace process.
Okay. Tabish Forugh, thank you very much. Amina Khan, thank you very much. It was wonderful talking to you, having an insight about Afghanistan peace process. नाज़रीन, एक छोटी सी ब्रेक लेते हैं, मेरे साथ रहिएगा. वेलकम बैक आफ्टर द ब्रेक जी. नाज़रीन, जो ड्रामे होते हैं वो किसी भी माशरे की अक्कासी करते हैं. वो बताते हैं कि ये माशरा कैसा है, यहाँ पर रहने वाले लोग कैसे हैं, इनका फैब्रिक कैसा है, ये लोग क्या सोचते हैं, यहाँ पर कौन सी बेसिक नॉर्म्स हैं, इनके पास रिश्ते कैसे हैं, ये रिश्तों को निभाते कैसे हैं, इनके लिए रिश्तों की कदर क्या है. बदकिस्मती ये हो गई है कि हमारे जो अब ड्रामे बन रहे हैं वो पाकिस्तान की, हमारे इस माशरे की जो फैब्रिक है उसको तबाह करने पर तुले हुए हैं. ये कोई एजेंडा है, आई एम श्योर ऑफ दैट ये कोई एजेंडा है, क्योंकि हकायक इससे बिल्कुल फ़र्क है। कुछ अर्सा पहले आपको याद होगा डाइवोर्स पर ड्रामे बनना शुरू हुए और उसके रिलेटेड काफ़ी डिस्कशन शुरू हो गई, पब्लिक हो गई, और डाइवोर्स का सॉफ्ट नाम सेपरेशन कह दिया गया। और फिर हमने देखा कि हर दूसरे घर में हमने ये एक फिनोमेना देखा कि जी सेपरेशन हो गई, हमारी बन नहीं रही थी। एक ये ट्रेंड शुरू हुआ और इसकी जो कर्टसी थी दैट वाज द ड्रामास जो हम देख रहे थे। उसके बाद एक नया ट्रेंड शुरू हुआ एक्स्ट्रा मैरिटल अफेयर्स का। जो लोग शादीशुदा हैं उनके पहले बताया गया कि खामन जो हैं उनके रिलेशंस होते हैं, और उसके बाद बताया गया दूसरी ख़वातीन इस चीज़ को बुरा नहीं समझती, इनकी बीवियां इस चीज़ को बुरा नहीं समझती। ये कहाँ पर हमारे माशरे में होता है जब ये सारा कुछ होने, और बात वहाँ ख़त्म नहीं हुई। उसके बाद हम मज़ीद आगे बढ़ गए। इसमें हमने ये देखा कि ख़वातीन बीवियों के एक्स्ट्रा रिलेशनशिप्स हमने देखे। हमने अपनी सोसाइटी को, अपनी फैमिली का फैब्रिक, अपनी नॉर्म्स, हमारे जो माशरे की इज़्ज़त है, औरत जिसको हम लोग बहुत एक ऊंचे मुकाम पर रखते हैं, हमने उस सब को तबाह करने में कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ी। बात यहाँ भी ख़त्म नहीं हुई, हमने इसको भी पब्लिकली डिस्कस करना शुरू कर दिया। तो लोगों के लिए अफेयर्स, शादीशुदा के लिए अफेयर्स बुरी चीज़ ही नहीं समझी जाने लगी, चाहे वो मर्द हों चाहे वो ख़वातीन हो। बात यहाँ पर भी ख़त्म नहीं हुई। हमने देखा एक और रिश्ता, सास और सास, उनके साथ उनके जो इन लॉज हैं उनका, ससुर का, बहू का, भाभी का, और जो देवर हैं इनके, ये बड़े साफ सुथरे रिलेशंस हमने देखे हैं। पूरी ज़िंदगी हमने उनको भी पलीत कर दिया। हमारे ड्रामों ने उनको नापाक करने की पूरी कोशिश की, और हम लोग इस तमाशे को देखते हैं रोज़। आज की तारीख में जब मैं ये बात कर रहा हूँ, आप लोग खुद देखते हैं जो भी ड्रामे चल रही हैं वो कहाँ चल रही हैं, वहाँ पर क्या हो रहा है। बात यहाँ पर भी नहीं ख़त्म हुई। वेब टीवीज़ के ऊपर हमने देखा नई सीरीज़ शुरू हुई, और नाउज़ बिल्ला वो बातें, वो अल्फाज, वो व्यू पॉइंट शेयर हो रहा है जो हम लोग शायद कभी ज़िंदगी में सोच भी नहीं सकते थे कि हम लोग ये चीज़ें या ऐसी बात भी अपने दोस्तों के अंदर भी बैठ के सुनेंगे जो इस वक्त ख़वातीन के मुंह से कहलवाई जा रही हैं, और लोग इस चीज़ को सुन रहे हैं और देख रहे हैं। मुझे नहीं समझ आ रही कि हम अपने माशरे को किस तरफ लेकर जा रहे हैं। अगर ऐसे नासूर जो हमारे माशरे में जो इस एजेंडे को लेकर आए हैं, अगर हम इनको एड्रेस नहीं कर सकते तो आप यकीन कीजिए ये माशरा, हमारी इंसानी कदरें, हमारा जो दीन कहता है, हमारा मुल्क, हमारे ये पाक साफ खुशियाँ फैलाने वाले ये जो रिश्ते हैं, इनको तबाह करने में कोई कसर कम नहीं रखी जा रही। ये इन लोगों को मुझे नहीं पता कि पैमरा इन पे एक्शन क्यों नहीं ले रहा, मुझे नहीं पता कि हुकूमत वक्त इन पे एक्शन क्यों नहीं ले रही, और ये एक बदतरीन शक्ल पेश कर रहा है इस माशरे की, इस मुल्क की। ये शक्ल पाकिस्तान की नहीं है। हमारे यहाँ माँ, बहन, बेटी की बहुत इज़्ज़त है, हमारे यहाँ भाइयों की, वालिद की बहुत इज़्ज़त है, और हम तो उस माशरे में रहते हैं जहाँ पर दुश्मन की बहन, दुश्मन की माँ को हम लोग अपनी माँ और अपनी बहन समझते हैं। ये चंद नासूर, ये चंद नापाक लोग, ये चंद पलीत जहनियत रखने वाले लोग हमारे माशरे को, हमारे मुल्क को, हमारे मज़हब को ख़राब नहीं कर सकते। इनसे हमने छुटकारा हासिल करना है। हम कैपिटल टीवी के इस प्रोग्राम से आप सबसे इल्तिजा कर रहे हैं कि बैन करें ऐसे लोगों को, ऐसी जहनियत रखने वालों को, चाहे वो जितने मर्जी बड़े डायरेक्टर्स हों, जितने मर्जी बड़े राइटर्स हों। ऐसे लोग जो औरत की तज़लील करें एंड वाइस वर्सा, जो मर्द की तज़लील करें, डोंट follow them. Thank you very much for watching Pakistan Today. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. मुझे मंसूर आज़म काज़ी को इजाज़त दीजिए। अल्लाह हाफ़िज़।